What's up, everybody? SaberWolf94. It's rant time. Gonna be about the Pokemon TCG this time. So, a couple of days ago, well, might even be a week by the time you see this, maybe even longer. But I made a video talking about what I want in a Pokemon game. It was basically kind of a response video to, I don't remember his name, but he's a big YouTuber. I'm not sure if he only makes Pokemon videos, but he made a video talking about Pokemon Uranium, the Nintendo Switch, the new Pokemon generation, when it's going to come, and uh, he talked about how Nintendo maybe doesn't take enough risks and what he wanted and stuff like that. And I gave my 2 cents on that. While I get what he's coming from, and I don't necessarily agree. I do understand why the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, they do certain things. Like I said, I don't agree, but I get why they do it. Like the way they release games, the way they release remakes, why you know, the enhanced versions of Pokemon games like Ultra Sun and Moon and Platinum and Emerald in these games are always kind of superior to the original games, and it makes you wonder, well, what was the point of getting the first one? And I'll probably make another video talking about this in depth as well. But today we're going to talk about the trading card game and the similarities with this, because they pretty much do the same thing with the TCG as well when you think about it. Uh, Pretty much, if you really think about it, the Pokemon TCG, they went all out with innovations and creativity in the third generation, and maybe they uh, did a couple of touches. They made a couple of touches in fourth generation as well, but pretty much that was it. Uh, we got the Mega Evolutions in X and Y, and that was all right. And a real kind of new thing was the GX attacks that we have now. But other than that, it's pretty much what they've done is they brought things back, they removed things, and then brought them back again to kind of sort of make things fresh and sort of like stall things out. I'm not sure how to explain this, but the trading card game started in 1996. We had the first sets, base set, jungle, the Neo sets, after that, Neo Genesis, all that stuff. And basically, there were no supporters. The rules stated you could go first, then play trainers, all that stuff. And that was kind of the beginning of Pokemon. You had trainer cards, you had Pokemon, and energies. That was it. Then they started to sort of make trainers like it was Professor Elm, sort of like they weren't really as supporters yet. They were still trainers, but they had sort of rules like Professor Elm. If you played that guy, you couldn't play any other trainers that turn. So you could say he was kind of like a supporter. And then they brought trainers that said, okay, this card stays on the field, which was basically stadiums. And then eventually, with the e-reader sets, starting from Expedition, we got the distinction between trainers and supporters. And I think stadiums too. I'm not sure if stadiums came earlier, but you get the idea. When EX Ruby and Sapphire came out, that's where pretty much a lot of the Pokemon TCG foundations and stuff uh, came. They went all out. They brought the Pokemon EXs, which you guys know. You knock them out, you get 2 more prizes, we get 1 more prize. And they brought, the fucking, what they're called, Delta species Pokemon. This was basically like, the SPN of these kinds of variants, like not exactly owners Pokemon, but they were kind of their own thing. They brought, the dual type stuff. This was the first generation. It started with Team Magma versus Team Aqua, where we had Pokemon that had 2 types. And basically, they also brought the shiny Pokemon too, which I suppose we had them in the second generation too. But pretty much just about anything you can imagine was in this generation, like rich, creative generation. Third generation had everything, basically. Uh, then, with fourth generation, they removed EXs and brought level Xs. Okay, so that was kind of a different touch. They only gave one prize, and it was kind of like an extra evolution level up. But they removed a lot of shit, like Delta species stuff was out. There was no shiny rule with the one shiny Pokemon you could use. There weren't really any dual types, Pokemon that had two types, and it kind of went a step back. And then they introduced SP Pokemon, which were owners' Pokemon, okay. So they brought that shit back again. Then we got Heart Gold, Soul Silver. The Primes, they were nothing really special. They were just rarer Pokemon, even though they were stronger and they had a big impact. They didn't have any special gimmick. There were no level X's. There were no EXs, GXs. That was it. What they did bring in Heart Gold, Soul Silver were the legend Pokemon, which besides a few that maybe actually did some stuff later, like Rayquaza Deoxys with Emboar, they didn't really do much. And maybe Raikou Entei too. And that was kind of like the beginning of, oh shit, full art cards and cards that have big emphasis on art, that kind of thing. And we started kind of going away from the holographic borders and that sort of a holographic type of card. Then Black and White came out, and the Black and White series didn't really bring anything. It didn't have nothing, and then starting with Next Destinies, it brought back the EXs, but this time they were all basic Pokemon, and they were big as fuck. There were no Stage 1 or Stage 2 Pokemon EXs. So they basically pretty much brought back a very cool and very famous Pokemon mechanic that was introduced in third generation and kind of made it slightly different. You get what I'm saying? And that was pretty much it. They brought a bunch of shiny Pokemon too, which were reprints of cards, and that was kind of it. Anything else like the gold secret rares and stuff like that, like gold Ultra Ball and stuff like that, they were more cosmetic. They were more cosmetic sort of things that didn't really add much to the game besides super expensive ass cards. Then when X and Y came out, it kind of followed the black and white model. They had the abilities and stuff too. Oh yeah, and starting with black and white, they removed Poke Powers and Poke Bodies and made them all abilities, which I think it was kind of stupid. But once again, they sort of simplified, changed things in a way where there was really no reason, but in order to make kind of like a change to not let things get stale, even though they are kind of stale in disguise. So X and Y comes out, and it's pretty. It feels right at home with black and white. It wasn't a big of a leap in difference like with DP's transition, fourth generation transition to black and white, where there was a lot of. It was a clusterfuck of rules and rulings, and it was messy. I don't like when we transition from another generation to the other one. There's a lot of crazy shit that happens a lot of the time. I believe transitioning from Heart Gold, Soul Silver to Black and White was like the worst. It was so messy. But anyway, so X and Y really didn't bring anything either. Had the Pokemon EXs too, the same way like in Black and White, and it just brought Mega Evolution Pokemon, or Mega Form Pokemon as I like to call them. And pretty much that was kind of like a level up thing too, when you think about it. But it was an original thing. It was kind of different. So okay. And then we just went to the Sun and Moon era. Oh no, wait. Of course, I can't forget. During the X and Y, they brought breaks. They introduced breaks, which were pretty much level X Pokemon. that, maybe had they were a little more flexible. You could play them on the bench and stuff like that too. And being completely golden cards, they were ugly if you ask me. But because they were horizontal, uh, it kind of was, it made a better sense. You put this on the art of the card and it doesn't block the previous card, the effects and stuff. So that was cool. But that was pretty much bringing back the level X mechanic and kind of changing the shit up a little bit. And then with the Sun and the Moon, we got the GX attacks, which is a completely original concept. Okay, I'm not going to lie about that one. You can only use one GX attack per game, and it opens up a lot of strategies and stuff. You could have a bunch of GX Pokemon in your deck, and your opponent never knows which one you're going to use, that kind of thing. But do you guys see what I'm saying here? Unlike the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, which I can speak of too since I've been playing for a million years as well, where they bring a fucking new mechanic every 3 years, and while those mechanics have kind of similarities as well, it does make a very, very, very big difference in the game, that it pretty much isn't the same game anymore, if you ask me, and does all sorts of crazy shit. The Pokemon trading card game has pretty much just brought some shit, removed some shit, bringing it back, change it a little bit. The kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. And also because maybe they're thinking, well, what else are we going to introduce in the Pokemon trading card game? Maybe they're thinking they can't really expand upon it like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or if they do, they know that it's going to get fucked up. So that's what I'm trying to say here. Uh, a lot of the mechanics and stuff, you can pretty much find them in the third generation, where they went all out and then they kind of removed shit, brought back shit, and just made some subtle changes and made like subtle new concepts, brought subtle new concepts into the game, pretty much. I will admit the GX attacks are a completely original and cool thing, but when you think about everything else, like GX Pokemon, pretty much are like EX Pokemon, since they can be basic too. They're like the EX Pokemon from Black and White and X and Y. And then they brought GX Pokemon that were like Stage 1 and Stage 2. So basically acting like the original EX Pokemon in the original EX era, starting with Ruby and Sapphire. So, it's cool that they brought it back, but it makes you wonder, why did you remove this in the first place if it was cool? In my opinion, starting with Black and White, if they did this in the same way they do it now, it was going to be a much better era if there was Stage 2 and Stage 1 EX Pokemon. And people back then kind of sort of were saying this. I mean, why did they have to do it like this? All of the EX Pokemon have to be basic, you know? So really, that's the only reason I can think of. They just remove sort of shit, maybe change things up so that it doesn't stay the same, and then they bring some of the same shit back. And yeah, that does change the game and how we experience it. But when you really think about it, they basically just remove something that was good and that would have been cool, and then they kind of bring it back. Oh, some new shit, some fresh stuff, when it's really not. And I'm not exactly sure if this is a bad thing or a good thing. For me, it's kind of a bad thing because with Sun and Moon, I'm very satisfied with the variety and the concepts. Pretty much, we've got the GX Pokemon. They're basically like EX Pokemon. We got the GX attacks too. Cool shit. We have a lot of cool cards, a lot of cool stuff. But then I'm thinking that starting with the next generation after this, I'm thinking, okay, they're probably gonna remove shit once again, maybe, or they just do some weird shit that doesn't make sense. So that's what I think. Now, whether it's bad or good, I really can't say. It's bad in the sense that they remove shit, but I guess the good thing is maybe they understand that what works works, and we're just sort of gonna try and kind of like not necessarily trick people, but uh, just not like rub it in their face that it's the same shit, even though it is. Because think about it. Think about Garbodor. That Pokemon got released in Dragons Exalted, got reprinted a couple of times, got reprinted in X and Y, and we still have it around in Sun and Moon, and it's the same ability that, okay, it blocks abilities. You got other Pokemon in the same way that, okay, this is the same shit. Okay, we've got new Pokemon with abilities like energy acceleration where they cover a different type. But a lot of Pokemon, like I've said, it's just the same shit on a different sort of Pokemon, different card, but the same shit when you think about it. Of course, they bring out new stuff too, but they recycle more old stuff than they bring new stuff. And perhaps that is inevitable. It was always going to be this way. But, it's interesting because maybe they do understand what works works. We're going to keep it around. We're not going to do like what Yu-Gi-Oh does. And they're just subtle with changes. Like with the new scans from Sun and Moon 5, if you guys have been keeping up, watching a lot of that shit, once again, you can see a lot of recycling and a lot of like even they use the art style of older cards too, like Cynthia, Volkner, uh, Looker, Handsome, oh well. But yeah, I can't really think of anything else to say. I just really thought to share this with you guys. Maybe you guys know, maybe you guys never really paid attention. But really, when you think about it, pretty much, like a lot of the concepts have been done before. Pretty much, I would say like the third generation was when they went all out with creativity. And it's like the foundation of the Pokemon TCG today. You got the EX Pokemon, the GX Pokemon. They brought back dual types in Steam Siege, but they didn't really do much with them. Yeah. So, hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Hope you guys subscribe, leave a like, share this with your friends. I like making these Pokemon rants here and there. I've probably rambled for far too long, but I really feel like there's more stuff I wanted to say. But hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys subscribe. Saberwolf94, and what is up?